Right.
Welcome to the Inspired Idiot Show.
I wonder.
Tuesday. Tuesday morning. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Today we are talking to Kaleen.
The man, the myth, the cold calling legend. Just giving him a second to hop on here.
The classic story from James's interview series.
Yeah. Homeless to 50K a month is
Insane.
it's hard to talk any kind of shit about that. No matter what business somebody does, to go from homeless to 50K a month, it's like, man, you obviously hustled. You did something right.
Yeah,
so we're very excited to talk to him.
Yeah, it looks like he's joining now, so just waiting for him to pop in here. But really excited because here we go.
No.
You're so broad.
In frame. Well, I'm sorry.
Can you get less jacked so you take up less of the camera space, please?
Yeah. Hey, Kaleen, how's it going?
Wonderful, wonderful. How are you two doing?
Good. Nice to meet you finally. I was just watching your video with James yesterday. I feel like I already kind of know you a little bit, but it's good to meet you.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of responses for that from that video. So it's good. Always willing to help the vote out, you know?
Yeah.
Best choice I've ever made. So there you go.
Yeah, I love it. I feel like you come across as very approachable because you're just very humble. You're like, yeah, man, I was homeless. I was living with my sister. So people feel like they can be like, hey, man, I'm struggling. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, that's truth, right? I think one of the things I learned and how I became so successful was just taking responsibility for, my actions and, realizing, hey, you are where you are because of stuff that you did. But then it's also a good story to tell as well. So I have no problems, talking about it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, again, and thanks so much for having us on. I mean, this is the first time I'm meeting you, I guess, virtually here.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm Alex, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're just meeting. So I'm Kelsey. I was the one emailing you. This is my fiance / business partner, Alex. And basically what we're doing here is to kind of give people context who are going to watch this. We all did the local marketing vault program, which is basically a program for people who want to get into online business. We actually think it's probably the best online business to get in if you're a beginner, because it really teaches you how to learn digital marketing, how to work with businesses, and then whatever direction you want to take it in from there is kind of, your ball game. But we have heard a lot about you in the program because you have this incredible story. You went from being basically broke and not having a place to live to becoming a cold calling demon and then growing your business to over $50,000 a month. So we would love to hear a little bit more about your story. And I know you like to talk a lot about your mindset and getting your mindset right. And I love that shit. So why don't you kind of give us a little bit of introduction to you and I guess how things have progressed for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, wow, where do I start? Well, originally I'm from Washington, D.C. I grew up there. Left, went off to school, undergrad, grad school. So I mean, I had everything. I got married. My first marriage was when I was in grad school because my ex-wife at the time, she was working the PhD program. So I had everything. I had a nice family. I finished grad school. But I think the thing was I couldn't, I had spent some time in Southern Africa. I went to South Africa, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, did some work there with one master's program. Then during my MBA, I worked in Brazil, right? So I had a ton of experience, degrees. But when I was interviewing, I couldn't get an offer, right? It was almost like, this was early 2000s, late 99, 2000s. I don't know. I guess maybe they were scared that I was going to take their job. I don't know. I never wanted to be in sales. Sales chose me, right? I was expecting with my travel experience, my degrees, I was going to be making, $70K. This is, again, 2001, $70, $80K in the office, doing consulting, but never happened. So, I had a kid at that time and I was digging holes and pounding poles. I worked late night at a factory because, I just couldn't get a gig. So got my first opportunity as a financial advisor, sales. That was the only job that chose me. I never thought about sales because I'm like, why would I do sales? Sales suck, But I did it and I was successful. I was really good at it. But I really didn't take the time to become a better person. I was good in sales because I was just good. I knew how to build rapport with people. And what I learned in sales is that people buy from who they like, right? So, very likable guy. I knew the product, but I didn't do any personal development. I didn't read anything. So, I was just sort of an average salesperson, right? Then we moved away. I lived in the Caribbean for like 7 years, right? I left. I lived in I moved to Trinidad and Tobago for 7 years. So my kids actually grew up there, a large part of their life. Anyway, came back, and that's what it was. So when I was there, my first wife, she got tired of my BS. She divorced me. I got divorced the first time out of the country. A lot happened. But so I literally went from having everything to losing everything, right? It was all based on choices I made. So when I came back, worked some jobs, but then I eventually found out about the vault, right? Because marketing is always my thing. And the first call I had, I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Jason or James, but one of the people that they use, right? Literally, I took the call on a Friday. I quit my job the same day. I was like, I'm done. So literally, I paid the money to the vault and I quit my job. I called my boss up. I know you all saw the Dave Chappelle when he went in and he married Oprah. And he was like, yeah, screw you. That's kind of I left. I was like, I'm done. So literally, I was living with my sister at the time. And a week later, I got my first client, right? I was up all night trying to do the back end part. The sales always came, but it was the back end, right? The tech stuff that just had me up all night. And I'm just like, man, so I figured it out and I started running things. 7 days later, I got my first client, within a week. I was like, yes, I did it, So then I really didn't have a lot of money, right? Because I just didn't. So I said, what's the best thing I can do? So I just got out the phone books. I got out, this was 2000 and I started my business in 2018, wasn't it? Yeah, 18. So I use a lot of online sources, got names from mortgage brokers. That was my first niche I started. And I just called them up, man. I just would call them. I was making probably like 100, 150 calls a day, literally, right? My sister basically, she didn't put me out, so to speak, but it was time for me to go, So I moved into a Wood Spring Suites, and that's how I built my business. I just started making calls, 100, 150 a day. I was calling, because I'm on the East Coast, but I was calling the West Coast. At 9 o'clock, it was 6 their time. And I was getting paid by the no's, right? Every time I get a no, like, okay, well, how many no's it takes me to get a sale? So that's how I started. And literally, I pulled the script from the vault, an old script from the vault, made it my own, and I just started killing it, man. I mean, so the first year within the vault, it was sort of touch and go, right? Because I started my business, I think it was March 2018, and I would get clients here and there, right? But I had a lot of expenses, so I had kids and stuff like that. So I was literally contemplating towards the end of 2018 of leaving. I was going to do security. I was like, but then I was like, nah, you know what? All I got to do is just get 1 or 2 deals, I need to make more phone calls. So 2019, January, I just made up my mind. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So one of my buddies, he became my accountability partner. And I would have, my schedule was laid out. Every Friday we would talk, and I had to, be accountable about everything I wanted to get done. And every single thing I wanted to get done, I did it. I mean, that's no lie. So January, I made like 10K. February, I think I made of 19. It was like 11K. In March, it was like 15K. And then it was just up from there, And then, of course, they would do a lot of competitions in the vault, I would win a lot of those. But what really helped me was a lot of the motivational and personal development books that I read, because initially when I was going through my troubled times, I never thought personal development worked, I was like, oh, who sends that kind of BS? That stuff doesn't work, So I was so jaded, right? But when I really, took responsibility for my actions and my mistakes, I said, you know what? I need this in my life, because I think in our minds, 90% of the time, our mind is telling us what we can't do, right? But again, so the personal development just helps. So I started doing tons of reading, lots of books, personal development, and, just took off from there. you know? I mean, that was basically the gist of it, you know, in a nutshell.
Yeah. Okay. And like when you first decided to join the vault, I mean, the thing I'm curious about the most is like being in the financial position you were in. Like, how'd you afford to come into the vault, and then how'd you also afford to be like, fuck it, I'm out, and then just like leave the job?
Yeah, that's such a big leap of faith.
Yeah, it was funny because I had a property that I owned with my siblings in DC that it was in probate for quite some time because my mom passed away. And we eventually sold the property. We got ripped off, and that's how I started the real estate investment company as well, because I learned so much from that process. But we sold the property, and literally with the money that I did, I bought the businesses. You know, I mean, I blew. I mean, it wasn't that much. You know, I mean, it might have been, I don't know, 17 grand. You know, but I did. I bought the businesses. Gave some to the kids. Partied, of course. I mean, that's real. But I bought the business, so I was able to, get smart about it. So I just did it, man. I just did it, and
wow,
best choice I ever made.
Yeah,
and that's cool to know, because I was actually wondering how you ended up really focusing on the real estate niche, if it was just like a personal interest for you. So it sounds like you wanted to focus on that because you felt like you got kind of duped by somebody in that profession.
We did. It was crazy. But everything happens for a reason. And I think the reason, of course, was because I didn't know, right? But then after that, I learned so much about it. I'm like, you know what? Let's start a company, because I want my kids to really understand the process of real estate, how you can navigate it, and create those different streams of income. So,
yeah.
And when you were making those calls, I mean, I've watched, like, I feel like I've watched that interview you had with James a couple times, like going through it, being like, this is crazy, man. Because you're such a good, an example of somebody who's come in and then been like,
just grinded.
Fuck it. Like, I'm motivated. I'm going pedal to the metal all the way. And I feel like when I talk to people around that and they're like, oh, like, will it work for me? I'm always like, it's not about will it work. It's will you work it? Because there's people who come in that it takes them years, but then they make something big. There's other people who come in like yourself who just hammer it and then start getting some clients coming in.
Absolutely.
So for you, like, when you first started doing those cold calls, like I listened to the pitch that you had. I mean, you were basically like coming in and being like, hey, I got an overflow of leads in this area. Can we set a call? Is that kind of like what it was for you? Like, you're just trying to set that appointment?
That's it, man. I mean, it was so easy. It was something that was a script that I think I got back in the vault 2018, but I just sort of made it my own. And it was, there it is. I'm running a campaign in your area. We're generating, I made the numbers up, right? I didn't even have a website. I think I had maybe a Facebook page. I didn't even have a professional email. I was using my Gmail. I had none of that stuff, dude. But I was hitting them. I didn't have any proof of anything. I just was getting them on the calls and telling them, listen, this is what I'm doing. I'm getting these clients. They can't handle the volume. Do you want to increase your sales? Yeah, I think it's all a numbers game, right? Of course, people would hang up. I found joy in the people that would hang up on me. I'm calling back, hey, we must have got disconnected. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's what I was saying, hey, I don't want to talk to you. All right, Then you call them back 2 days later and you close them, Maybe they had a bad meeting or they got in something with their wife. Who knows, right? So that's why I just say, you just got to call them, man. Just hit them up. So that's what I did. I didn't take anything on. I just was like, I had a goal of X amount calls I wanted to make, and then that's what I did. So yeah.
So do you have like 100 new calls per day and then like 50 follow-ups or something? Like, how'd you decide when to follow up with somebody?
Yeah, so that was the thing, man. We, before, like when we started in the vault, they eventually came up with this program. It was called Howdy, right? It was sort of automated follow-up, but we didn't have any, right? It was none. So literally, I would call, if I got on a call with the person and, because I wasn't even doing webinars back then. It was all telephone, right? So if they said they were interested, I would keep calling them until they told me. And if they told me no, I would still call them. Okay, well, listen, I'll call you back in 2 months, right? So literally, I was just doing it all myself. Literally, follow-up calls. I had my call list, and I just would check it off. I wasn't as technologically advanced as I am now, but it was just a grind, man. It was a grind.
And when you did call them and you're like, hey, man, I got this overflow of leads. Like, can you handle some? And they're like, yeah, sure. And you set that appointment. When you get to the appointment, like, did you give them like the leads in advance where you'd send them some leads and then start it? Or did you be like, okay, and now give me some ad spend? Like, how'd you work that conversation?
See, that's a good question, because initially, right, when I first started, I kind of started with leads in advance a couple times, but I got burned, man. I got burned. Because it's like, what I learned was that, a lot of sales professionals, they aren't that good. So what I'm doing is, I'm basically, my job is as a marketer, my job is lead generation and marketing. Once I get you that lead, it's your job to close them. I don't have my mortgage license or real estate license. That's your job. So you can't get mad at me if you don't close a lead. I don't know if you're even good. How do you handle objections? Are you working late? Do you read personal development books? So these are all things I had to learn. So initially, I did it. I had a guy who was a mortgage broker on the West Coast. I gave him all of California. Man, I was doing leads. He had all of California. We broke it up. And man, he must have gotten probably maybe 400 or 500 leads, dude. All he did was pay. He paid for ad spend. I gave him a deal on that. Zero. He paid me zero money. And basically he said, oh, I didn't close any of those leads. So that's even worse. Dude, you suck. Like, I don't even want to work with you. You can't close. So I thought he was lying, but either way, I don't want to deal with you. So I learned leads in advance. Listen, I'm not doing that. If you can't pay for my services up front, then go find another agency that works better for you, because that's not what I'm doing. So
yeah, and that's something that really stood out to me about you as well, Kaleen, because you talked a lot in your other video about how you were very stern with people. Like, you would approach them, but then if they started coming at you being like, well, send me references, send me your website, you're like, no, I'm not wasting my time with that. And I think that's new people would be so scared to do that, because new people are very like, I'll get you whatever you want if you work with me. So how did you feel confident enough to be like, no, I'm not wasting my time sending you extra information. I'm on this call to give you this info right now.
Yeah, well, because initially I was doing it. I was jumping through the hoops, all kinds of dances. But then it's like, I really realized it's an objection. Like, it was something that I didn't get you, or something you're not comfortable with. So you're just really just towing the line and just just pulling me on. So I would give them a reference. They wouldn't call the person. You call them back. Oh yeah, I'm so busy. But then I realized, I'm like, hold on. Why would I give you a reference of somebody that's a client? I don't want my clients being disturbed. Like, you're not even a paying client. Don't disturb clients that are paying. Look, if you can't pay up front, I'm not giving you a reference. I'm not asking you for references. Well, give me one of your clients. Well, how good was he? Did he handle your objections really good? Like, I don't work for you. We're in a partnership, right? So I had to explain that to people. I don't work for you. I have my own agency. So if I give you a reference, you give me one, because now I want to know, can you close? Are you that good that you say you are? Because everybody can close. Oh, I got an 80% closing ratio. But when the rubber hits the road, it's like, oh, this dude sucks. This person can't close. So I said, I just stopped. I'm like, no. And I even had a guy who, he got mad because we have, one of our biggest packages is $7,000, basically, $69.99 for leads and everything, right? And he was asking for all this stuff. He was ready to pay. He was asking for all this stuff. This was last year. He said, you know what, man? This guy's going to be a pain in the A, like, I don't want to work with him. So I said, listen, buddy, I'm not giving you this information. Here's the thing. Actually, you're not even a good fit for my agency. I wish you all the best, and maybe you need to find somebody else that works better for you. And he literally cussed me out, called me all kinds of scams and everything, So it was just like, my time is valuable for me. And I've realized that working with people like them, they drain you more, right? They take more time away from you, So I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good.
So is that kind of a tell for you that somebody's going to be a pain in the ass when they're asking for things like, send me references, send me all of this beforehand?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Or they're trying to tell me how my job. Now, again, I do take, advice from, I do take suggestions, but I'm the expert. That's why you called me. So, hey, here's the thing. But if you're telling me, oh, this, or let me see this, hey, man, you know what? This is not going to be a good fit. I'll tell you right away. I fire clients. So that's what we do. I do monthly agreements. I don't even do contracts. I don't lock you in because, again, that's money some more for my benefit where I can just get rid of you. Like, you know what? I'm good. I'm done. You're done, man. Yeah, you're done. So people say, oh, why you don't do contracts? Well, first of all, we get the money up front anyway. But then it's like, it's month to month. So I can fire you after the time. So there you go. Yeah.
You ever go into any like have any like chargebacks or anybody trying to like screw you over the money? Like, how do you handle those situations without the contract?
That's funny because so in the agreements I put in there are no refunds, right? There are no refunds, none of that. That's already in the agreement. But I think since I've been in business, I might have had 2 chargebacks. One was from a lady who in California who I eventually won. And the other lady, that was a chargeback. She could have just called me back for the money. But a lot of times, if they say, hey, if they become a problem, if they give me the money, I'll just say, hey man, you know what? You're going to be difficult. I'll just refund you the money back. I don't even want the problems, but take the money back. I'm good. I don't even want it. There you go. Here it is. You got it.
Yeah.
It's just
not going to change my life to have this 5K or whatever.
It's not even worth it. It's like, I'm not saying like that's like $7,000. Yeah, I mean, it's not even a lot of money. You know what I mean? It's $25.99, $44. I'm not saying it like that, but from a business standpoint, it's not even, it's more stress anyway, so.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of a level up that people get to in business when they realize that they've hit that transition where they're like, oh, I actually value my time now more than my money. Yeah. That's something that I think in the beginning, you're very focused on getting those clients, getting some income, especially if you're broke. And then when you get to that point that you're like, I would actually rather save my energy than make this $7K. That is a powerful shift.
That's why I'm in business. I always say our most valuable asset is time. We can't get that back, we can't get time back. So, when you value your time, you can value who you want to work with and who you don't want to work with. So that's important to me. The money's going to come, but if I love what I do, value my time, the money's going to come. So that's how I look at it.
And how'd you, when you were first starting out, like you're saying you started out with mortgage brokers, what kind of services were you offering? Like, were you offering that kind of 7K package? Like, what does your packages kind of look like?
No, it's funny. So back then it was just lead generation because the vault initially started out as lead generation, but then of course they pivoted because I think we started at the highest, the highest mark with leads. And we left out a lot of the, reputation management, a lot of those things. So they pivoted. But I loved it because it was like, I think we were charging, when I started, it was like mortgage brokers. That was a nice deal, man. 50 leads, 100 leads, 200 leads. 200 leads was like $3,000. 100 leads was, let me see, maybe like $4,000. It was like $2,000 and then like 15, 59 or 99, something like that, right? But again, when a mortgage broker makes a sale, they just need to close like 1 or 2 leads and they make their money. So we just followed the process. We were getting the leads in pretty cheap. They had the Howdy program. We were doing follow up. So it was great. But again, if the mortgage brokers weren't closing, they weren't renewing the package deals, But I was still getting the money up front, which was great. So I still think lead generation is the best. You get the money up front, and then of course you can then package it up with SEO, reputation management, social media, whatever it is you want to do. SaaS, right? That's where eventually we moved to SaaS, right? But yeah. So
okay, so was that 3K? Sorry, was that 3K with the ad spend or with
it was all it was all inclusive. So they pay. So what they would do is they would pay one price. Because I wanted to get I wanted to control. So I controlled everything. I did all of the pages. I created their pages. I created everything. I paid the ad spend to get the points on the credit cards. I did everything, right? And then of course I just wrote everything off, right? Flying, traveling everywhere. It's write-offs, right? So everything's a write-off. So yeah, I controlled everything. They had no control over anything. Initially, I wasn't using their pages. I was just creating Facebook pages and building content because I had the pixels that had data on it that I would then repurpose if it was a particular state or city or even counties. I had that data that I would then be able to then, recycle for those leads. So, yeah.
Gotcha. So how have your packages changed since when you started to now? I'm assuming that you have more of a bit of an all-inclusive approach and different packages that people can purchase.
Absolutely. So what we learned is that the biggest cost, of course, is ad spend. So once we get the ad spend down to where it's perfected, everything else is literally profit, right? It's just your time that you're putting in. Everything else is profit. So it's an all-inclusive package where it's lead generation because I only focus on Medicare brokers, Medicare professionals. So that's a huge market. And everything's designed and excuse me, and catered towards them. So we understand the compliance of the industry. We understand the residual income of the industry. The workflows is everything set up. The training that we put together is all set up for them to be successful. So we package it in and you get everything. But of course, it's like a bronze, silver, and gold package, right? The gold package would encompass everything. The silver would have a little bit less, and the bronze would have, of course, the basic package, right?
So the basic would be like some lead generation, a little bit of that kind of thing.
Right, lead gen. So let's see, the basic would be like the bronze package would be 50 leads, right? 'Cause technically, what you're really doing is you're paying for technically the leads. So we just sort of, bang them up because, of course, that's expertise to get that cost down. When we add on, say, like a chat widget on your website, we'll do a landing, a website design for you, professional email, right? All that stuff in GHL is just, it's amazing what GHL's done since I started, right? So we just package it up with training. We have training videos. Everything's done through workflows, automated. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool how we do it.
Nice. Okay.
And is GHL still the primary software that you use to run your business today?
Yeah, it's still. GHL is still it. I've been with GHL since 2020. So it's going on 4 years now. Yeah, and they've done a lot over the years with just everything that they've done with SaaS. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been unreal.
And how has your kind of team changed? Like, I know for a while it was just you, and then it was just you and your son. Is that still the case, or have you kind of expanded and grown a little bit more?
Well, we've always had, myself and my son, when he came on, we handle the front end, but I do have a team of like 1099s that help me on the backside that's experienced with Go High Level or, give me some recommendations on certain things. But as far as just like, the front end sales, just me and my son. I try to bring people in, but I don't want to manage. Like, my son understands, I do. I don't care about making 50 billion. You know what I mean? Like, look, I just want to be able to travel, take my laptop with me. I think my wife and I, we probably been to maybe like 20 places this year. I'm always traveling somewhere. So we're taking like 1 or 2 trips every month, right? And I'm still working. She's working as well. So, I don't want to manage a whole lot of salespeople. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah. And are those often work trips, or is it just kind of pleasure and you're just working while you go?
They're always work trips. Always. Absolutely. Because listen, all I got to do is make one call. It's a work trip, right? One call, one appointment. Yeah. It's a work trip. Yeah. So they're always work trips.
Yeah. We're going to Thailand in a month, and it's a work trip.
There you go. There you go. We'll be in St. Martin in a couple of weeks. Work trip.
I love that.
There you go.
So now you said you're mainly working with like Medicare type companies. Are you still working with people in the real estate industry, or just
no? We got rid of them, man. They just, the real estate brokers. I guess just sales in general. But I felt like I was doing too much, right? With the real estate, with the mortgage brokers. I was like, you know what? I just want to take this niche and become really, really, really good at it, so that I can then build it out. So that's what we decided. So I just dropped it. Now I still do because with the real estate investment company that I have, if I met a real estate investor that wants leads, I would still do a package for them because I still do that on myself. But other than that, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. And for the Medicare industry, are you mainly targeting like kind of med spa owners? Like which kind of businesses are you targeting in that space?
So Medicare is pretty unique because you have individuals who are licensed to sell insurance, more specifically Medicare. So every single day, there are like 11 or 12,000 seniors that age into Medicare every day, right? Wow. Which is through the Social Security Administration, Medicare, right? They gotta have health insurance. So basically, the government sets aside is really Medicare Part C, which is an advantage plan, where they can then get these plans and get additional benefits. So you have Medicare professionals or brokers who they can either be they can have to have their own LLC, or they can work for another agency and they sell these plans. So we target them, but we also target the FMO or the field marketing organizations. That's sort of the intermediary between the brokers and the carriers, like a Cigna or United Healthcare or Blue Cross Blue Shield. We target them as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I'm curious, like, just as a man, like for you, what was it like to have your children see where you were in a place of maybe a little bit of struggle, and then be able to even have one of your children work with you and be able to even impart some of that skills and that knowledge that you've had and be able to kind of benefit from that?
That's a great question. Yeah, it felt great. I mean, I think, I've always dealt with my kids straight up, because I made a lot of mistakes in life, and I think the biggest thing is just, teaching them, take responsibility. Nothing's ever given to you. If your life is effed up, then you know what? That's because you probably were making bad choices. But the great thing about it, son or daughter, is that you can make different choices and then you can make a change in your life. So them seeing me, because I was at Wood Springs Suites. It's like one of those, like, what do they call them? Where they have the kitchen, refrigerator. People would stay there like a week or whatever. So, of course, they were living with their mom at the time, but then they would come with me for the summer. So I had to get a room with another, 2 beds, you know what I mean? And they lived there with me for the summer. They heard my kids they knew the pitch. Like my son, they all knew the pitch, because we were right in the room and they saw me making the calls, So they saw that, and they realized, man, my dad's making all this money. That's what my son was like. He started in college, but he was like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I want to help you, So there it is. So it just felt great to just be able to pick myself up, take responsibility, but then be able to then take action.
Yeah, because we looked through like the LMV group there on Facebook, look through it and seeing all your guys' like posts, the competitions that you guys were competing in with Ben Stewart, and we had talked with him actually, and I was like, man, these competitions are vicious.
We were
putting up numbers, man.
Ben, we had pictures with Ben with like bullet hole. Nah, I'm just joking. But no, we were like really, because Ben was like. It was like he was a competition. We're going to get him. And then he would get us. We would get him. He would get us. It was just kind of going back and forth, That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. That was really cool. And that was during COVID. So everybody was talking about, man, we were killing it. We were doing like 30K. It wasn't COVID was great for us because we were already it was already COVID for us anyway. We were working on the computer anyway. So it was like, now you can't go nowhere. Now you have to come see me now. Yes, let's go, Something like that. Yeah.
When we talked with Ben, he was saying, he was like, yeah, man, I wouldn't, I'm not really, I'm a cold caller, but I get in these competitions and then I get beat by a cold caller and I'm like, no way, this can't happen.
yeah, right. Yeah. It was like our duty. We would say, we're going to get Ben. We're going to this is our goal. I was like, son, look what you got. We got it. We got to make our submission. What you got, Let's get him, So it was pretty cool competition.
That's awesome, man. That must have been a great experience for you and your son to kind of partner up in business and just hit the phones, really.
And it still is, my son, he's he was 19 when he started working with me, and he moved to Barbados, on his own. Oh, wow. Yeah, he lived in Barbados this is during COVID. I actually had to leave and get quarantined because he tried to get a place, and they were like, dude, you're too young. You're going to be partying. So I had to leave Charlotte to go to Barbados to help talk to the owner and say, look, my son works for me. He's not a partier. He works. He's like, he's professional. He was only 19. They were like, oh, this guy going to be partying. I don't want to rent to him. So, yeah. So, he, so it was good to bring him in and just sort of teach him a lot of the things that I was sort of, I failed on in sales starting out, So that's really the thing, Yeah.
That's really the big reason for me why I wanted us to interview you, Kaleen, because obviously you have this really cool story. You went from 0 to 50K a month, which is a lot of people's dream, but it's your energy. Because like watching videos with you and even talking to you now and listening to you talk about you struggling, like you just have this huge smile on your face. And I can just imagine what you were like on those cold calls when people would hang up on you or tell you off. You're like, man, I'll just call them back 2 days later. And people are afraid to like summon that energy. So when you were kind of struggling and you were living with your sister, or when you first went to the Wood Springs, how did you keep that positive energy, even though you're like, man, I'm living like in a hotel right now. Like I'm kind of struggling here.
Yeah, that's a great question. It was tough because again, I had to really delve into a lot of the personal development books. I think one of the first books I read was Take the Stairs by Rory Vaden. That was like one of the first personal development books I read. And it's not a long read, but it just, wow, it spoke to me, like I think about it. When you take the stairs versus the elevator, you're getting that, you're releasing that energy in your legs. It's that workout. So it's like doing the hard things make your life easier, right? So I was like, man, you know what? I think a lot of times in life, I was taking the elevator. You know what I mean? I was just good because I was just good, but I wasn't trying to be the best, you know? So I was taking the elevator all the time. And so a lot of the personal development books, I read a lot of Grant Cardone, he was very influential. A lot of the books that he put out. Let me see, Eric Thomas. Eric Thomas is a motivational speaker. I mean, every morning when I get up, you know, just keeping my mind right. And I think that's in sales, man, I think that's like 99%, you know, 90%, whatever you want, you know, that's the most important part, because once you check out here, your mind's telling you, oh, you can't do this. Your friends telling you, oh, you can't do this. Your family's telling you, oh, you can't do this. It's like, you know what? I cut people out of my life who weren't conducive to what I was doing, which was tough, you know, people who you knew for a while, who didn't really appreciate or respect what you were doing. I had to cut them out. You know, I had to distance myself, because I'm like, look, I know what I want. I finally have my goals. This is what I want. And everybody's not going to line up to what I want to do. But that's fine. You know, I wish you the best, but I'm going this way. So it was a lot of that, you know, a lot of that. Then my accountability partner. So this is the guy that I went to. We both were in grad school. I met him in the MBA program. We were in Ohio, and we were both in the program together. And he was here, and I came here. You know what I'm saying? But he was still my buddy. And I was like, man, you know, you know, he was basically talking to me. He was my accountability partner, you know? And I just didn't want to go to him and be like, okay, I'm not serious, you know? So everything that I planned, I had to meet with him on Fridays. I'm like, this is what I did. This is that. Everything, like I told you, I wanted to get accomplished. I got accomplished. So
yeah,
on my list,
that's yeah, that's a huge part of the value of, I think, doing a program like LMB, because so many people know that they could learn something, but it's the accountability. And it's like, if I haven't paid for this in any way, or if I don't have any reason to keep myself accountable, I probably just won't.
Well, yeah, I agree.
And like, I'm curious, like, because I feel like in everybody's life, really, who decides to go into a different mold of everybody else, right? You're going to have, whether it's family members, friends that are going to question what you're doing, maybe tell you all the negatives around something, you know, and be like, oh, maybe that's not what it should work. Maybe you should get a job. Maybe you should, because Kelsey and I, like, when we first started, we were, you know, struggling. We were trying to figure out how to talk to people, how to meet these business owners, right? These people don't know who we are. We didn't go as hard as you did, definitely not. But we were just trying to figure out our way. And along the way, we were basically selling furniture that my grandparents had in a storage locker. They had passed away, and my parents were sitting on it. My dad was busy and all this stuff. So we were trying to help them out, get rid of these storage lockers, but also use that money in the short term to pay our rent and stuff. And, you know, throughout that experience, you know, I've had family even just like this last month be like, oh, you guys must be really struggling. You know, you guys are hurting because you had to sell stuff to like maintain your life. Whereas like, it's not the case at this point, right? Like we're not where we want to be, but like now we're like, I don't know, man, I don't know about that, but all right, you know, whatever. So from you, like how did you go about actually, you know, cutting these people out of your life in a way? I guess that would be my question.
Yeah, I just did it, man. I think, you know, it's like how Yoda say, do or don't do, you know. I just did it. That's it. Just do it, you know. And I think for me, where I was at the point where I made so many bad choices in my life, you know. Then you start to push the rewind button. I'm like, man, if I would have did this, like, you know what? All right, it's already done. There's nothing I can do about it. What can I do now? All right, so I know that I have certain triggers and people, so I need to cut them off. So I just did it, man. Just like with the phone calls, I just did it. But again, the accountability partner, the reading, the being consistent. Because what I did learn was that when you do something, they say for 30 days, every day, it becomes a habit. So you got to get into the habit of just doing something every single day. And then it becomes a habit, like brushing your teeth, taking a shower, you know, making 50 calls a day or 100 calls a day, it becomes a habit. And there it is. So I think that my mindset, just, you know, hanging around positive people, reading positive things, it just allowed me to just be able to keep my mind positive, because I think that's the most important part of sales.
Yeah.
So what was at that point then, when you were kind of on the come up, I mean, what was your daily schedule kind of like? Like, what was your kind of routines that you kept to make sure you enforce those habits?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was I didn't have a lot of follow-up. So I was just making a ton of calls. And when I didn't have calls, I had appointments. So it was kind of organized confusion, really. you know. But again,
Just violence.
Yeah, calls, appointments. That's really what it was. So it wasn't like, and I would get up and listen to personal development stuff. I worked out a lot, but it wasn't like, I had my schedule down to a T, which I eventually went to that way, but I'm not like that anymore. From like 7 or 6 a.m. to like 9 p.m. or 10, right? Schedule out my whole day from 7 to 8, 8 to 10, lunch, then this. And of course, because things are going to happen, but the thing about if you have a plan, then if something happens, you can get back to the plan or get back to the schedule. So that's what I learned. Scheduling it out, and then, getting back to it if something happens. Because, I don't know, maybe I got a phone call, maybe, something, whatever it was. Okay, you know what? I got to get back to this. And just keep going, just keep moving. Versus being a leaf in the wind, no plan, whatever that is, and you go down a rabbit hole and it's like, oh, what was I doing? Oh, so I think that was the thing, just trying to have a plan. But mine initially was organized confusion. Calls, sales, right? So I'm like, you can't go wrong.
At what point? Yeah. At what point did you kind of lay off the gas a little bit in terms of the volume of calls that you were making, like these cold calls that you were making?
Yeah, so when I started, I think it was like, I think the first 10K was like January 19. I probably say, man, it was feeling good, man. It was like, wow, I'm making this much. So then I think once the income started to come in, right, I was like, okay, well, I don't need to do so many calls because I got so good on the phones. Well, I didn't have to make so many. So now I can, instead of making 150, I can dial it back down to 75 or 50 because now I'm really better with this as far as communicating my what I'm trying to get accomplished, getting you on the phone calls, tackling your pain points, right? So sometimes you may have to start out high, but again, it's all a numbers game. Once you understand the script, you make it your own. You know who you're talking to, you know who your audience is. You don't got to make so many. So I think that's what it was. I stopped making as many as I got better with the script and I understood their pain points a lot better. Because I wasn't even really. I know the vault had like a what they call the six close, six circle card.
Yeah, 6 circle close. That's the one. Yeah.
Man, I didn't do any of that. I was like, look, I get on the phone. I'm just like, okay, we set up the appointment. I'm like, I'm trying to figure out, what do you need? Like, even though it was that, but it wasn't how they had it. But I had my own way. And I was just closing them. I'm just like, okay, hey, man, so you're from Michigan. You a Detroit fan? Oh, really, man? All right, So we're talking about a lot of other things other than just the business now. And I think that's what it is. It's like trying to find an end with the person, because I'm not meeting you in person now. Really remember my smile, my business card, the way I dress in person. Online, it's like, who is this guy? Can I really trust him? Okay, well, yeah, how's it? I feel like I can talk about anything. So that's why I read a lot of books. Oh, what's in Michigan? Oh, man, how's the lake effect snow? Whatever it is, right? Something that brings you closer to them, get them to talk and get them to feel a bit more comfortable. Because the sales are going to come, right? That's like the sales will come. You just got to build that sort of relationship with that person. And they like you, man. They're like, oh, man, I like this guy. Look, when are we going to sign up, Yeah, and if you don't like me, I'm going to keep calling you and tell you, well, we didn't really have a list back then. A lot of people did business with me because they got tired of me calling. God damn it, this guy called. You know what? All right, man, I'll do it, man. Shit. So I got a lot of business like that too,
I feel like that's
on this guy.
Yeah, that's a really good point, though. That's a really good point, though. Is like,
I'll do kind it. You know what I mean?
That's something I wanted to ask you about. Is like, how do you kind of balance, like, if you're trying to have these brief calls where you're like, okay, I'm not looking to take an hour and a half of your time, so you're trying to build rapport with them, but also keep the call on track. So did you kind of have like a way that you would try to do both?
Yeah, so on the initial calls, those are quick hitters. I'm not really going into much, but once I get them on the actual call, that's when I get a bit more deeper, right? But on those calls, it's like, hey, so I'm just making setting up 15-minute appointments, right? Because I know you're busy. I'm busy as well. I don't want to take up too much of your time, interrupt your day. What's better for you, this Tuesday or Thursday? So I'm assuming the sale already. I'm not even like, oh, will you be available? No. I got openings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. What's better for you, morning or afternoon? Oh, okay, boom, right? There it is. So now I have to send them an email with no follow-up. And of course, you're going to get some no-shows, right? But the more calls you have, the more you'll keep. The better you know the script, the more, you'll sell. So,
yeah. Okay. So when you were making these calls, like, did you use just basically GHL to do the calls? Did you use any kind of software to be able to help make these calls happen for you, or?
No, man, I was using my cell phone. I got what was that program called on my phone? I think it was, I transferred to Zoom. It was one of those voice over IP services. So I was doing mortgages in Texas. So I got a 469 number. That became like my business number. I was just calling them from that. I didn't have a software at that point. I was just hitting them up, calling them, closing them, sending them out, typed up my invoice, all of that stuff. Yeah, man, it was all, old school. Sounds like old school, not that far along.
I like that you coupled the ad spend in there though, because then you're really, your main business proposition is that, like, if they give you the 3K, the more profit that you can drive, like, the cheaper you can get those leads for them that are still qualified, right? In some way,
absolutely,
that's where you make your money.
That's where we make the money at. That's where we make the money. So, and we've gotten them down because I've been doing this for, 6 years almost. Jesus. Yeah, so we were able to get the cost down. I mean, the vault, I'm telling you, the way they put it down, I still use the original ad sort of setup that the vault had. I never changed. Facebook came in with all of this stuff, recommendations. I'm like, screw you, Meta. I'm using old school because it works, I always feel like they're trying to, make me spend more money than I need to spend, So the original vault that set it up, I mean, that shit's gold, man. Like, those guys are they're the best, dude. Jason and James, like, they did it. Yeah, they did the damn thing, man. Yeah.
Nice. All right, I just have 2 quick questions for you, and then we'll let you go. We don't want to take up too much of your time.
It's all good.
But you've already kind of spoken a little bit about mindset, especially in the beginning. Yes. I know that, you really like talking about that. So is that, if you could kind of pass along any advice to somebody who's thinking about getting into online business and kind of maybe where you were, what do you think that you would advise them to do to help them get started?
Wow, that's a great question. I would definitely say, if you're looking to get into business and marketing, definitely the sky's the limit, really. You only fail when you quit. So I think a lot of times people give up before their success. So I think as long as you're in it, you never fail. It's all learning experiences. So make sure that you're constantly, reading personal development books, stuff about sales, mindset, psychology, right? Especially with the online space, there's a lot of stuff out there. Get some sort of accountability partner. A lot of most successful people, they have accountability partners, right? They all do, so I think that's probably another thing, get an accountability partner. And then just take action, right? Don't try to make it perfect. Make the mistakes and learn from it, because I think a lot of times we wait and be like, oh, well, it don't look this, it don't look that. Just dive in, dive in and let your mistakes be the learning experiences, right? That's what I would say, for sure.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah. And I mean, I'm guessing that your business probably looks pretty different today than when you just started out, just hitting those cold calls by yourself. So now, what does your business look like today, and how do you kind of make sure that you stay on top of keeping it growing and staying productive?
That is a great question. So now, since I've been in the business, we have a huge database that we do tons of email and SMS marketing to. So, I pride myself on being a great writer. So a lot of the emails, and especially emails and SMS, I mean, it's just like gold, dude. We just send it, we use Go High Level, we send it out, right? So I'm not doing as much cold calling now because I have a huge database that we've been able to develop over the years. But I mean, it's still my son, I still handle the front end. I always tell my clients, I do not have a call center in Southeast Asia. So I know you all will be going there soon. So you're going to talk to me on the phone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's important. But a lot of it is really the same, except for I'm just not doing a whole lot of cold calling, and I've integrated a lot of the automation inside of it, right? Automation and training. The automation really is the key. The problem, though, with my niche, Medicare is sort of old school, so some of the stuff is over some of their heads. So I got to dial some of it back when I get a client, which is great for me because, I'm cool with it. I don't have to always be on the tip top of my game with all of the AI and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, look, they just want to lead. This guy's been in the business for 30 years. He don't care about no damn AI. He just wants to get a lead in. Okay, good. So I figured out what you want, and I sort of got a package. I can dial it down, or I can, increase it depending on your need. So that's sort of how we changed.
And how'd you build that database up? Like, were you guys running like webinars or anything like that to like get more people who are in that industry?
That's what we do. So basically, we run the email and the SMS messaging. It goes to a calendar link to set up your 15-minute webinar, and we show it to you. We've even run some stuff online on Facebook where we recorded it in. But I like that. But it's something about just getting the client in person on the webinar. But it's only 15 minutes, really. It's 15 minutes. So I can control how many I want in a day or not, right? I can block out some days. I can still travel with it. I'm doing my webinars. I mean, we were in Hawaii back in the summertime. It was like a 5-hour difference, which was crazy because I'm waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning. It's like 8 on the East Coast. But again, I'm working. So it's all webinars. So yeah, so that's the thing. It's it's pretty cool. Webinars.
Okay, so you're using the webinar to basically fill those 15-minute appointment slots for you, and then have your son go and set appointments as well?
No, so the clients set them themselves. So literally, the email messaging and the SMS messaging has the link for you to set your own appointment, right? Because of based on your interest. So you click the link, you go to the calendar, you book your time, and then we get notification. And then at that particular time, we show up, we show you the platform, and we close you. And if you say, "Oh, well, I'm not ready," keep you in our pipeline. We follow up, and then we'll keep hitting you. Hey, what's going on? You ready to do this? We keep the pipeline full. I don't hard sell or close sell anymore. I want to work with people who want to work with me. So as long as my pipeline's full, I may not close you today, but maybe 2 months from now, I'll keep closing you. And we just keep the system going. We keep it going.
But do you guys still do any cold calls, or you just have your son following up basically?
Not really, because I probably got about 150, 200,000 people in my database, FMOs, IMOs, So it's like, okay, then we tag those. Well, who do you want to send them to? FMO emails. Boom, they book. Because it's all based on the content. We use a lot of ChatGPT as well with the content for the email marketing, but the content is so good. It's like they want it. They love it. With the pricing, with everything included, it's an industry that we've cornered, and we're just like top notch. I'm just being honest with you. Yeah, so it's a really unique industry, but you got to understand compliance with it, and that's important.
I mean, that's probably why it makes it so unique, because people don't want to understand compliance.
They don't want to understand compliance.
It's probably like HIPAA or something, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, HIPAA, Medicare.gov, the government. It's government stuff. You can't say certain things. You can't do certain things online with these beneficiaries. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. That's really cool.
This was awesome, Kaleen. Thank you so much for hopping on with us. I actually, speaking of writing, I am going to write a newsletter about our interview and your kind of journey to help people who want to learn about business and who are maybe starting an LMV. So I'll send that to you when it's done. And thank you so much for hopping on with us. It was great to meet you finally.
Absolutely. Now, when did you two join the vault? How long have you been in?
Yeah.
We joined just over a year ago. We had our anniversary, I guess, in November.
Congratulations. There you go.
Yeah. Well, we didn't start until like January, really.
Well, we were watching the training.
We were watching some trainings,
Okay,
yeah, because we came in as we came in as basically a consultant, like through another company that we were working with. So we were working with a company, and we were consultants for them, helping them deliver for some clients. And basically, we didn't like the situation that was kind of going on there. They just didn't seem like they were doing a good job of what was happening.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of meetings with Jason as well. So we had been in contact with them for a few months with that. And we were just like, well, I like your approach, man, because like it's most of the sales stuff, like, 'cause we've both been in social media. So posting Instagram, growing followings, that kind of thing. And it's all like flashy, but then it's like, well, how do you make the money though? You know what I mean? Like that's ultimately when people are like, I want to grow my followers. Most of the time they want the money, right? Because they're like, if I get my followers, now I have a list and I hit the list, boom, I get the money, right? So they're just saying the followers because they're trying to sound, edgy, I guess. So we were basically coming in and we're like, okay, well, we want to get away from this company, but let's learn some of these like more basic skills. I would say, like, how are local businesses like using technology now, and what softwares can we use to then tie into that? So if we did go and partner up with some local business, do the following thing, run giveaways, all this kind of stuff, how can we leverage that to do it basically. So we went the hard route. We didn't use any of our previous knowledge really. Like I built some funnels and stuff like that, but like didn't really use any of our previous knowledge. Just went for these local businesses, talking to them. You know, our biggest one I would say was we linked up with a guy that was in the HVAC business for like 25 years, just old school, you know, so skeptical. It was like, nah, like he's like, yeah, okay, this is what people say all the time. And I was like, yeah, well, your Google My Business says you guys are a cleaning company, you know, you guys do HVAC, so you know something's wrong here. And then he's like, okay, well, if you guys are so serious, then like, come meet me. Okay, sure. Drove to his house. Rolled up to his house, and he had all these old like receipts. And we were just like, okay, okay, like, you know, he paid us basically to have our assistant, you know, put them all on a spreadsheet online. And then I was like, okay, cool. Like we'll send out messages to all of them. We'll text them in the last 3 years that you had. We'll text them all, and then we'll run some ads. So give us some ad spend. So he's like, okay. He gave us some, you know, $300 basically. So we set the ads up. We started texting the list, and it was just like,
I think
people
like
coming in
3 weeks later, he was writing us a check for $2,000 to do a bunch of services. So
it
worked.
There you go.
And he was old school, like you said, like he doesn't give a shit about whatever you're saying. He's like, give me the name, give me the number, I'll call him.
That's
you know?
it.
It's like great.
You gotta know your audience. Like, so I'm glad that you you know you realize that, because I think that's the thing. Knowing who your audience is. Everybody's not gonna want all the AI. They don't want that. Listen. So you gotta be able to understand that and then, you know, make it happen. So congrats.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And those are my favorite clients because they don't give shit. Like, you know, when you, like you said, when you deal with people, sometimes they might not be able to close, they might not be able to do anything, but most of the time I just see they don't try. Like someone will phone their business and they don't pick up. And you're like, what the fuck, man? Like 10 people have called you and you haven't picked up a single call. Like, what are you doing?
And you get mad at me.
That guy was hard, man.
Yeah, then you get mad at me. You say, oh, well, I can't afford the service. Yeah, because you effing suck. You're not even making no phone calls. So GHL is great because you can go and look at the dude. You haven't made a call, and I'm like, man, you know what? You're fired. Fired.
Yeah.
So
because my favorite thing about this business model is that you're very much a rainmaker. Like you come into businesses and you basically operate their business without doing the back end. Like you're bringing the customers in. You're sometimes you're setting the appointments. You're doing all the stuff. That's super important. And that is a really in-demand skill because who the fuck does that?
Who does it?
You know, and most people don't want to do it for free to even get the opportunity, and most people even the opportunity to get good. Like most people just come in and be like, "Oh, you should pay me," but you suck.
Right.
You know, so it's like, you know, if you can do it, then great, because anyone will pay you. And then when I'm on the phone with people, I'm always saying that to them. I'm like, look, if you come into the business and you're like, hey, I can get you some business coming in, some customers. You know, what would it be worth if I got you 10 people? Like, what would you pay me? Right? You can even just start it super basic. Like, is $30 a person worth it? Yeah, okay. Now you just scale that up. Okay, cool. Well, now I got you 100. So 100, that's $3,000. Let's do that. And then
let's do that.
It makes more sense in their eyes because these are a lot of times they're not like necessarily business savvy people.
No.
They're just service providers, and they're like learning as you're going, and you can't really like talk down to them, right? Like they're just
be so super high level, you know. But it's just like, well, let me think about it. No, I don't want to work with that.
I'm gonna get you all these impressions, and I'm gonna do this, and the brand awareness you're gonna get. Like they don't give a shit about that.
That's what I always tell the people. I'm like, if a business owner does not seem interested in what you're offering, it's because you haven't clearly painted the picture enough for them of what value it's going to bring. So if they're saying that they don't want to pay for it, they don't see the value, then you know that you can do better at explaining to them and painting them that picture. Like, here's exactly what we're going to put in your pocket this month. Make it so easy for them to understand that it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Or just call the hell out of them and just say, hey, listen, just
that too.
You know what? I'm tired of this guy calling. He's
either going to do business or he's going to block my number. Both are a win.
A hook or by crook, right? But again, it's all about, like you said, and then following up. I think that's the thing. Because most times, you know, most people, you're not selling the first call. So how many times are you following up to get the business? And sometimes people, what I learned, they'll give you notice to see how much you're going to follow up. How many times are you going to follow up? You know? So I've gotten business like that. Man, you called me 25 times. Yeah, it'd have been another 25 times too, because I needs that. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
And that kind of separates you too in a way, because now like they're like, this can't be a scam. This guy's that.
Right, yeah.
That
he's calling me.
You know, following up. He must be fucking serious.
I got so much business like that, man. Just calling. Just keep calling. Damn it, hey, man, leave me alone. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll be ready to get started. Blah, 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 you'll keep it going, Yeah. I'm going to get it all. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kaleen. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you too.
You're somebody that makes me want to pick up the phone and start dialing people. And
there you go.
Thank God you didn't ask me to buy anything, because I would have whipped up the credit card right now. So
well, listen,
thank you.
I do have this service where don't get me started now. And it was a pleasure meeting you too, though. Pleasure.
Yeah, we're gonna turn off this recording. What we ask is just leave Riverside open for a minute so it can finish uploading on your end, and then free to go.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Kaleen.
Nice to meet you, man.